I don't want to pat ourselves here on the back because it sounds egotistical, but I'll tell you one of the reasons why why I'm delighted to be working here is Roundhouse Radio. To begin with, we're independent, so we don't have to answer to some big corporation, and we take the time to look at issues that a lot of other people don't. And one particular issue, which is close to my heart because it's just so shocking, is what's happening in Myanmar. The Rohingya people have been living in Myanmar for a long time. They're an ethnic minority. And now the army has decided that they want to ethnic cleanse these people. And since September, more than 500,000 of these people have been chased out of the country. Hundreds have been killed. And the way that these people have been slaughtered is beyond belief. Now, listen, I know this is a tough story to talk about at 7:16 in the morning, but this is happening right now. The leader of Myanmar is Aung San Suu Kyi. And when she was in Canada the last time, she was given an honorary Canadian citizenship. She also has a Nobel Peace Prize. And you know what? She's not doing anything to stop this. A good friend of the show is Fareed Khan. We've had him on, and we've been following this story. And why this story isn't getting more media attention totally escapes me. We first talked to him when he was getting a petition together, calling on the government to help the people of Rohingya, the minority there, and also calling on Ottawa to revoke this honorary Canadian citizenship from Xi. So we talked to him beforehand. He was about to present the petition. I know the petition was presented the other day. I just wanted to do a quick follow-up with Fareed. The one thing I noted, because I'm a news junkie, is I didn't see this on TV at all. Not on the Taxpayers Network, not on CTV, nowhere. And this is a huge story. So Fareed, welcome back to Roundhouse Radio.
Gene, thank you for having me back.
Now, have I pretty well summed up what's happening in this country?
In Canada, with respect to this?
No, in Myanmar.
Oh, in Myanmar, yeah. Well, with one small correction, the deaths are in the thousands, not the hundreds, in the thousands. And yes, and it's been going on. They've been, they're a persecuted minority. They've been persecuted for decades. In 1982, Myanmar passed a law which stripped them of their citizenship, which essentially made them a stateless minority. And they have been barred from holding any public employment, so they can't work for the government or hospitals or schools or anything. Plus, the government in Myanmar has done everything they can to squeeze them economically, so they are a marginalized community. They can't get decent health care. There were thousands that were rounded up and put in internment camps back in the 90s and early 2000s, and those internment camps were surrounded by barbed wire and armed guards, and they actually had to get permission to marry, if you can believe that.
Jeez. Well, and of course, there's no natural resources in Myanmar, so the rest of the world doesn't pay attention. Most people in the news media don't pay attention. This is a story that I connected and clicked with right away. So we've been following this process of the petition that you were going to be taking to Ottawa. So now you presented the petition. Tell me, what government officials showed up, and did you get any big-time news coverage? Because I didn't see anything.
Yes, well, there were a number of MPs who did show up. There was one Liberal member. There were two from the MDP, which included their foreign affairs critic, and Charlie Angus, who recently ran for the leadership of the NDP, so he's a pretty high-profile guy.
Yeah.
And there was a Conservative MP, Garnet Jennis, who's from, I believe it's Alberta, and he apparently has been bringing up this issue repeatedly in the House of Commons for quite a while. We also had a Conservative senator, Salma Talajan, who is from Ontario, and she's also been raising this issue since 2009. The opposition member, the senator, and the MPs who were there spoke very passionately about this, and I'm sad to say that the Liberal MP, who I have been working with to try and move this issue forward, her response was, the best I can describe it as, is tepid. But then, I mean, she's a member of the governing party, and she really has no power, so I don't really know what more she could have done, but I'm trying to be charitable there. With respect to the media coverage, there was all the major national media had their cameras there. I believe there was a couple of print reporters there as well. The response on the media was, you're right. It was like there was really nothing. I had one interview on CTV News Channel following the presentation, and I did a radio interview with a local radio station in Ottawa, and that's pretty much the only response. I was checking the media like you were later in the day to see if there was any coverage on any of the national media, any of the papers, and there wasn't.
Yeah, well, I was sitting there at home going, "Hey, Wendy Mesley, you forgot a story." What? I know how passionate you are about this, and here at Roundhouse Radio, we followed this, we've covered this, we've had you on. Where do we take this next?
Well, the people who I'm working with, who have been more deeply involved in this than I have, because they've been working on this for many years, whereas I was a bit of a follower of the issue and decided to get involved at a later time. They're trying to do what they've been doing all along. They're trying to engage with the broader community. We're now trying to reach out to interfaith groups. We're trying to connect with academics who work in the area of human rights. And there's an institute at Concordia University, Institute of Genocide Studies. There's also a research group here at the University of Ottawa that we're connecting with. But the thing is that this issue will not move forward until Canadians can find some way that they connect with it. And I would ask your listeners, look at your child, look at your little girl, look at your little boy or your brother or your wife, and think about what it would be like if you were in a situation where you were having to face the horrors that these people are facing, and there was nobody coming to your defense or your aid. That's basically the situation. For me, the reason it's so personal for me is twofold. Number one, I'm a child of refugee parents. My parents were refugees when they were kids. They related to me stories and some of the horrors that they witnessed when they were young, fleeing sectarian and communal violence in India. And secondly, my late wife was the daughter of a Holocaust survivor, and she related to me stories that she heard of what her father endured. And at family gatherings, I would see my father-in-law, and I would see that tattooed number on his arm that represented what the Nazis did to him, and it always sent chills up my spine. So for me, there is a very personal connection to this. There doesn't have to be a personal connection because, frankly, we're all human beings.
Yeah, exactly. And we always say never again, never again, never again.
Exactly.
But you know what? Canadians aren't getting oil out of Myanmar, and like I said, when there are no natural resources coming out that we need, we tend not to pay attention to it, and we let it fade away. We can't let this one fade away.
No, we can't. And you know what? Let me tell your listeners something else. That there's the supreme irony of what's happening. Just a couple of weeks ago in Ottawa, a national Holocaust memorial was dedicated, and the Prime Minister spoke at that dedication, and he said, and this is a quote, "This monument is a reminder of the devastating cost of allowing hatred and tyranny to overcome openness, inclusion, and freedom. Today we reaffirm our unshakable commitment to fight anti-Semitism, racism, xenophobia, and discrimination in all its forms." And I put this to the Prime Minister directly to the camera. Is he really committed to those words? Because if he is, if this government is sincere, if Canadians are sincere about a commitment to fight racism, xenophobia, and discrimination, and if Canada truly wants to be a defender of human rights and democracy and the rule of law, then this is an issue that we cannot let go. We have to be active and vocal on this, because we were there in Rwanda and we didn't do anything. We were there in Bosnia. We didn't do anything. There was the genocide in Darfur, and there was nothing done. You know what? Those words, never again, are totally meaningless, and it's an insult to the memory of the people dedicated, that Holocaust memorial is dedicated to, if we do nothing on this, because it means we've learned none of the lessons that come out of what happened to 6 million Jews in World War II. And so I ask your listeners, contact your MPs, email the Prime Minister. This is not an issue that, as a human being, we should let go. I'm sorry, I'm getting very emotional, but I've been reading, stories similar to the ones that you related to your readers before I started speaking, and those are happening every day, and they've been happening not only for the last month and a half, but similar things have been happening going back decades.
Yeah.
Why we can't speak for these people who are voiceless, I don't know.
Yeah. Good work, Fareed. We're going to stay in touch. We will be covering this, and we'll keep updating it and keep having you on here with any news that breaks. Good work. Thanks.
Well, thank you very much, Dean. And once again, thank you to your producers and your radio station for continuing on this story.